Hey everybody, this is Adam for Real Home Recording. On this video, I have Michael Carnes from Exponential Audio joining me. He is a former programmer for Lexicon. He was working there for almost a quarter of a century. So, thanks for joining me, Michael.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's the West Coast?
Well, the West Coast is a long way from where I am right now. We're out in the middle of the desert.
That's all right. It doesn't really count as the coast. I mean, you're kind of close,
We're
right?
we're on the coast of the Great Salt Lake, which is, as oceans go on the minor side.
Um, so again, thanks for joining me. Honestly, like I've been enjoying, your work on your old plugins, and then I've been testing out your new ones for the past couple days, and I've really been blown away.
Well, thank you.
I don't know what what kind of voodoo you put in this stuff, but I was I always try to tell people like, I like to have two separate types of reverbs. I like to have algorithm and then I like to have convolution. And your new actually the Phoenix one especially, I think can replace the convolution plugins that I have.
Well, I hope so.
I mean, it's especially when you put headphones on, but even with speakers on, it almost sounds like, or it sounds like you're in a room. I mean, I can't even use that word anymore. It almost sounds like, no, it does. I mean, it sounds like, what I expect a room to sound like. I don't know if that's what you were going for. I know it's kind of the more clean of the reverbs, but it's really, really good.
Well, every reverb is something of an experiment. I learned this over a long time in my former life. Um, Almost everything you do in a reverb is a reaction to what you didn't like about the one you did before. Uh, so this there were some ideas I'd kind of been kicking around for a while, and a lot of the focus of both of these reverbs, you probably notice it more in Phoenix, is a little more concentration on the earlier part of the reverb and the way that that blends into the reverb tail. So there were a lot of real differences there in that and anything I'd done before, and then there were some real differences in the way that I managed the tail as well. And the blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah, I was joking with you before we started the interview. I was like, I think, we're as someone who's worked for a boss, and now I have my own company. Um, you kind of kowtow to what they want, and then it's like, well, I think that this could be better, and like, don't we? Let's not bother with that. And then you're like, but it could be so much better. It could be and they don't want to hear it. And I love it that you're your own boss now. You do this incredible amount of work. I mean, there's just so much praise going for your plugins, and I mean, really, it's kind of just starting to snowball. And I really think it's going to exponentially grow.
Well, that would be nice, but the people have been really supportive. It's been a year since I left Lexicon or Harmon or whatever you want to call them. And just about from the first day, people have been nothing but supportive. And it's nice. You get that encouragement, and you feel like, well, heck, I better give them something then.
Yeah, you've been on the message boards. I won't name all the names because there's just so many to list, but you're on there. You were on there for a few years there, and I mean, the information you provided was really, really, was great. I guess for lack of a better word. Um, so let's actually listen to some of these to the plugins right now. We're gonna listen to Phoenix on
Okay.
acoustic guitar and on drums. All right, so Michael, what makes your reverb so special? There's all kinds of companies out there with reverb, but what makes you so special?
Well, I won't say that I am.
You're nobody special.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right, and I stand by that. Um, uh, a lot of it is just plain experience. I had this other life as a classical musician, and I've been in an awful lot of concert halls. I've been around, a lot of different kind of spaces where music is made. So you sort of get a kind of basic sense about what a place should sound like, and what the players like, what lets them relax and do the best they can do. So a lot of it is just searching for that. But the other part is knowing the inside of a reverb. I mean, there are a lot of us out there in the world. You've got your choice of lots of different reverb plugins and hardware boxes. And in a lot of cases, we're using very similar sorts of tools and very similar sorts of internal structures and stuff like that. So, as much of it is, there's a part where you're looking for a goal, but the other part is knowing the bad parts about the way you're doing things. This has this particular artifact, and that other thing will do this if you're not careful. Um, so a lot of it is experience over years, just learning to suppress the artifacts and push down the things that you don't like and bring up the things that you do. But it's a tremendous amount of just sitting there and just tweaking and putting something irritating into it and seeing what happens. You put something like that that'll really have a life, like a squeak off of a kick drum pedal or something like that. Certain cymbals, a badly tuned snare, a vocal sibilant. A lot of that stuff you put that into reverb, and that's a real mark of where a verb may have problems. Um, so you're almost never in the process of development. You're almost never listening to stuff you like. You're listening to stuff that causes problems, and you're so believe me, I've got some dry material. I mean, some of it I've been using for years and years and years, and it's a defense mechanism. You can't even hear it as music any longer. It's because if you did, you would go crazy. It's just material, and
Yeah, I have
makes anybody else.
trouble. I have trouble watching YouTube videos because of bad audio, and whether that's from the production standpoint or YouTube's encoding. Now they've gotten better over the years, but especially when you put on headphones, you can hear the artifacting, from AAC compression, or whatever they're using nowadays.
Well, they're using. I actually saw a chart somewhere. I wish I'd kept it. But sort of what levels of video encoding give you in terms of the audio encoding, and it's generally AAC. And I don't think AAC is really that bad. I think what happens though is you just bear in mind a lot of people doing YouTube are just sort of using it with generic tools, and they're more interested in
Oh yeah,
sharing the. You know,
I'm not expecting network quality stuff, but I mean, I'm just saying, just like I know you, like you said, music kind of you're hearing all the bad things, and just you start doing audio engineering, and it's like ah.
oh yeah, you have to be able. If you're listening to music for pleasure, you just sort of have to turn off the audio engineer stuff as much as you can. And you can't completely, because I know, like, I listen to a lot of classical music and I hear every single splice, and even if it's beautifully done, there's always some little thing, doggone it. Now I'm going to hear that splice forever.
Right.
But that's the way it is.
So actually, you were talking about, since we're talking about artifacts, I was really curious. Are there any benefits to mixing with higher sampling rates, like higher than like 48 kilohertz, for your reverb algorithms?
Maybe yes, maybe no. And, this is one of these things you're supposed to have a real strong opinion about, and I don't. Um, the filters act a little differently than rays, and sometimes you'll get some advantages, out of that. You'll get a little different frequency signature than you would just because of the way a lot of filters are put together. So there'll be some differences there. It's arguable that you might get a little bit better spatial representation because you get, smaller increments of delta time. So if you're using, a technique like ORTF miking or something that has some time components to it, by having an apple that's half the length or a quarter of the length, you could arguably get a little bit better placement in space. All that's going to fall apart if you don't have really incredible amplifier and just, incredible control of the wavefront from the speakers and all of that sort of stuff. But I know most of the major labels now, whatever's left, they tend to do all their work at 96K and then just come down to 48 or 44.1 at the last stage. So they obviously see some benefit to it. Now, I can't argue at all about depth. The more bits you've got, the better off you are because that gives you what you need. It's going to come down to 16 bits, but it's sure nice to have a real honest 24 or something like, or maybe even more, while you're working on something.
Yeah, that's something that I've covered on Real Home Recording, and the main benefits are with signal to noise ratio. It's not actually like resolution like you would think with a camera. It's more like I was doing a bunch of tests and like um on 16-bit it just has a lot of quantization noise that you wouldn't get even if you had a noise floor of just below about 96 decibels. Um, it's great to have that cushion, even on cheap gear.
Well, all you got to do is take a 16-bit signal and multiply it a couple of times, with gain or run it through a few filters, and you've really clobbered it.
Yep.
Yep. You know,
So
all
so
Go
actually
ahead.
that leads me to another question. Kind of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
What's the hardest thing about developing a plugin?
It's when you think you're done and you find out you're not, like the position I'm in right now. Um, there are workstation programs that just come out of the woodwork once you should. And everyone, I test and develop with the major ones here, or most of the major ones, and everything is really smooth and working really great. And then you put it out there, and you find out there is some group of people that are really loyal to this thing that you never heard of. Um, and there'll be some little thing that needs to happen to take care of them because all the people that write workstation programs don't. The standards are only barely there. So even
Right.
if you if you match audio units or VST or something like that, you're done. But everybody's still got their little take about how it should get done. They've got multiple threads, and this guy calls the UI before this guy does, and you got to make sure you're prepared for it. So, in a lot of ways, the audio part's the easiest. Um, it's just getting it to work consistently in every environment that it might turn up, and those are things that you don't find out about until you're out there, and then you start getting complaints, and yeah, you deal with it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
hold.
I don't have much programming experience. Really, I think I was mainly HTML, which I don't even really consider a programming language because it's so simple. Um, but I always try to explain to people, I'm like, look at Windows 8 that just came out. Like, they don't, they're having compatibility issues, and you would think that the same company would have this, not many issues, but they do it all the time. Every time a new version of Windows comes out, there's backwards compatibility issues, and I'm like, look, I want a DAW that works for me, not against what I have. And there's only a few that actually that I've really haven't had too many problems with, and I'm
It,
like you said, the implementation of standards is just not there, and if it was, maybe this wouldn't be too big of a problem.
well, it's funny. Most of my stuff is running better in Windows 8 than it is in Windows 7.
Oh, really?
And it's one of these things. You got your list of little things to fix, and there's some of the 64-bit VST that's misbehaving in Windows 7, and I run the same program. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's Cubase or Reaper or whatever. Run it over in Windows 8, and it's smooth as it can be. And
Y-
I,
Another
I
weird thing that I found, it was for I forget which plugin, but the problem was fixed when I upgraded my video drivers. I mean,
I haven't had anything hit me that hard. It's generally just the approach of the engineers who do the DAW. Everybody's got their little take. Sometimes it it's not different out of malice. It's just different because they've got a different mindset about doing things. But then you'll find out it comes in and gives you a situation that you didn't quite expect. So you figure out what it is and you get it fixed.
right?
It always,
I can only imagine the amount of variables.
yeah, me too. If I,
Right? I mean, how like I don't really want to get too far into it because I don't want to bore the audience. But actually, now's a good time. Here's a few vocal samples of the R2 plugin.
This night reminds me of a certain autumn moon when she held me so gently. Yeah, and the train came much too soon. This night reminds me of a certain autumn moon when she held me so gently. Yeah, and the train came much too soon. I promised I'd be back early in June.
Okay, so Michael, now that we've heard some of the reverbs, what are the main differences between R2 and Phoenix besides the price?
well, um, Phoenix Verb is really intended to be as natural as I could make it. So there's really nothing much that I've run into yet that you couldn't use it on. I mean, you might have artistic reasons to use another reverb, but it's made to behave no matter what you throw at it and to give a natural effect.
Yeah, and on your website you call it clean and neutral, and I was like, oh god, this is going to be boring. And then I tried it, and I'm like, wow, like neutral's good.
Yeah, it's supposed to. Uh, R2, if you go back and listen to recordings from the 80s, early mid 80s or something like that, of course it's all soaked in reverb and those things. Um, but all of those reverbs have a particular character to them, and it's most obvious, I think, if you're listening to like some piano or maybe some solo acoustic or classical guitar or something like that, and maybe little bits of percussion. If you listen to that reverb, you'll hear the tails kind of swirling around, and you'll hear some like actual pitch wobble and all of that sort of stuff. And that's what R2 is about. Um, and the funny thing about it, when reverbs came out, when digital reverb started coming out, late 70s, early 80s, all of those effects were effects that were there. As developers, we didn't really want them, but you were dealing with limited resources in the computer, limited memory, and all of that sort of stuff. And those were things that were done inside the reverb to keep it from going unstable, to keep it from having room modes and all of that sort of stuff. But the funny thing about it, it became part of the artistic vocabulary. Um, and that's especially true when if you're dealing with mixers who were actually doing work then. I mean, that's the way reverbs sound to them. It's far from natural. The developers were all trying to go for natural, and this sort of stuff was just stuff that they had to do to keep it from blowing up.
Right, and it's a lot like the difference between a clean EQ and a character EQ. There's artifacts that like with like phasing. Like
Sure.
you don't want to have phasing in your EQ, but hey, actually you do, because that's what we're used to hearing.
Yeah, and it's, I long ago gave up arguing over right and wrong in this. In the end, you're putting a bunch of people in a studio, and you're making something. You're trying to make it either sound natural or artificial, but the fact is, it's always artificial. And it's, well, what do you want?
Right, it's like Picasso versus Rembrandt. I'm like Rembrandt, because his paintings are so realistic, but hey, who am I to say he's lesser of an artist than somebody who just puts a dot in the middle of a canvas?
Close to a Rembrandt as you can. It's not the least bit natural.
So one more bit of praise, one more bit of butt kissing for your reverbs, because I know a lot of people, they trust what I say, because I really don't. I try to not give it any BS. If I don't like something, I usually don't even talk about it, because I kind of don't like to badmouth anybody. But there's a quality to the reverbs that you've done that people call it like a gluing of the track. The dry versus the wet track has like a gluing effect, and what I really love about your plugin, your previous ones and these new ones as well, you can put them in a mix, even a dense mix, and you can still hear the reverb tails and all the other part of the reverb too, which is great. I don't know how you do it, and you shouldn't reveal how you do it, but it's I love it, because it's all in the box now. You don't have to spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a piece of hardware, and have to run everything individually. You can just put them all in tracks, and it's great.
Well, I sort of try to stay out of the arguments, hardware versus software and all that, because of course it's all software. It's still software that's running in those boxes out there.
Right.
But you have to look at the way people work, and you're either you've either got people at home, they may be working a day job or something like that, and working on an album or have a band or something like that, or it may be even guys at a major label. But the fact is, people have got to make more with less now. It's just the way that it is. A band doesn't get a year of studio time. You don't get to lock out Studio One and Capitol for 6 months to think of what your album might be. So budgets are tighter, and people are sort of moving more in the box. It's really nice to stick your job in a laptop and work on it a little bit while you're on the plane. It's nice to do it in a small space if you don't have a large space. So a lot of it's just trying to make the tools for the way that people are going to use them.
Right, and I just did a video about tools, and just we always have to remember that these are all tools, and I honestly think that number one, I think what you've put out is probably the upper echelon, and the fact that you've made them at affordable prices. I would say they're affordable. Some people might disagree with me, but for what you get, it's an absolutely unbeatable value, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so the two big questions. how much are they right now, each, and where can people download and try them out and buy them?
All right. Well, Phoenix Verb is $199. R2 is $299. If you buy them together, you can knock $50 off of that
Oh,
and get
nice.
them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all on the website, exponentialaudio.com. You need an iLock too, and let's not go into the evil iLock thing. It's the way that it is. But that also means you can download the program and get a week long demo, which is there's a code on the website. So you just take that code and you go redeem that code at ilock.com, and you've got either or both of the plugs for a week. And hopefully the way that works is that you're right in the middle of your mix when it runs out, and you absolutely have to go out and buy it now.
Yeah, and I honest what I recommend to people when they demo any new product is to just kind of have like a folder full of some of the best things that you've recorded, and just have that ready to go, because you only have 7 days, or in some cases 2 days or one day, to try out some of these programs. And I think people will absolutely be blown away. Even in I told you that the YouTube videos that you've posted on your YouTube channel sound good on YouTube. So I couldn't wait to hear what they sounded like, at uncompressed, and I think people will really like your plugin. So definitely, stop watching this video right now. Go to exponentialaudio.com and check them out. Like I said, I got a no BS attitude. These are top of the line reverb plugins, and I think I wouldn't say you're people love reverb, so they won't be the end all be all. But I think if you don't have these in your tool set, you're really doing a disservice to yourself.
I like hearing that.
Is that a good recommendation?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, so again, exponentialaudio.com. I'll have a link in the video description, because that's kind of a big word for some of us. I know I was having trouble typing it in for a bit. I was, but if you can spell exponent, it's exponential, right? That's spelled right. I don't know. The link will be in the video description, and it'll be on Twitter as well. So thank you, Michael, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Adam.
All right, this has been Adam for Real Home Recording. See you in the next video, as always.